and welcome to Last Week On, the podcast where we take our favorite movies, TV shows, and we go back through them. My name is Adam Straughan, and I am joined again by one of my absolute favorites. He is the host of Dunzo podcast and the co-host of Beyond the Blind podcast. It's Mr. Troy McEady. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm so good. That was such a good intro, by the way. I'm doing very well.
Thanks so much. But yeah, we were just kind of having a pre-chat before we hit record. Then we're talking about Thanksgiving. But I mean, just briefly, I think we both had a good Thanksgiving. I'm pleased that you were feeling better for it, Troy, as well, right?
Yes. I nursed myself throughout the week so that on Thanksgiving I could have a good time, and I did.
Yeah, good stuff. And because obviously, I'm from the UK, if you couldn't tell already, and we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK. So it was my first ever one. And it was just so much fun. All the food, all the stuff I was trying for the first time, all of the kind of Thanksgiving-ness of it all. But it was just a lot of fun. Like, I just felt like I could have slept for like a year afterwards because just the amount of food that we had that day. But I just loved it. Like, as I say, trying new stuff. I was telling Troy earlier, like sweet potato casserole, like as a sweet, it just blew my mind. So that was definitely the highlight for me.
I wish that I could have been there to watch you experience American for the first time. Like, that is truly my kink. That is like amazing to me.
I should have done a reaction video, shouldn't I?
You should have, honestly. You really should have.
That would be cool. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things now. God, I could have it like every day. Jesus, that and flan, just that's me done.
Well, luckily there are places like Boston Market that cater to your new obsession.
Well, I am going to be there and just getting bucket loads of it, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fly to Boston just for that. But all right, so today we have returned to the classic film, and that is Kill Bill, but this time we're doing volume 2. Troy, I had so much fun covering volume 1 with you, and I am so pleased that you've come back to do volume 2, because this, for me, I mean, Kill Bill is just special to me, but especially volume 2, because out of the two of them, it's actually my favorite. And that's weird, because if you asked me that same question maybe 10 years ago, I would have said number 1. And it's only kind of over that time when I've grown to appreciate a lot more of like the subtleties and the storytelling, the slower pace of volume 2. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
I agree. If you had asked me like in high school, I would have said like, I liked the second one, but I loved the first one because it's more sort of shiny and there's like more action and it's more like, it makes your eyes pinball more, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas this one is more nuanced and there's more conversation and like relationship building and like all of that stuff. So now, of course, now that I'm like an old lady, I like the second one more because I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's one of those movies that you do grow to appreciate, don't you? Like when you get older and a little bit wiser and you watch like movies with a kind of different eye than what you used to watch when you were younger. I was exactly the same. Like I watched the first one. I just loved all of the action. It was all well shot. It was so like, fast paced. It was exciting. And then to watch the second one, I even remember going to the cinema to see the second one. And obviously I was a lot younger and I was just like, oh, this feels a lot slower and a bit boring in places. But when I go back to it now, God, I just appreciate it so much more. I think it's such good storytelling. And I think one of the main things as well, which I think is fantastic in comparison, is that the first movie for me is like the samurai movie, but the second movie is the kung fu movie. So like in the first movie, you see like, a lot of like the bride, she's using the sword, like that is her instrument, right? And in this movie, there's a lot more kung fu from her.
Yeah.
There's a lot more using her hands, scrappy fights. Like the sword is still there, obviously, that's part of her identity. But just everything, like, the way she kills Bill, the fight that she has with Elle in the trailer, like all of that, it's all hands. And I love the difference in that. And again, just the subtleties that went straight over my head when I was younger. I was like, give me more action. But like, I just love little things like that. And we'll obviously talk about them as we go through the movie, but I just love that touch.
I agree with you. I feel like the last time we talked about it, we had discussed like the importance of the sword.
Yeah.
And like how the first movie did such a good job, like setting up the sword being like this big deal. And then in this one, like we've established now how deadly she is, and like the sword is an extension of her, but she doesn't like need it to be deadly. So it's cool to be able to see her be a little bit more like creative and scrappy with how she people.
100%, yeah. And just I love as well that we get so many, there's like 2 major Chekhov guns moments like in this movie, and I love when they happen. And then I love a good payoff in a movie,
Yeah.
and we get that both times. Oh, I love it so much. There's a lot of like, it's very self-referential, this movie. We get callbacks to stuff that happened in the original. Obviously, the way the film starts is exactly
Mhm.
that. But again, we just get those little moments when we go, oh yeah, I remember that in the first one. I remember that character beat. I remember that moment. I remember that reference. And it's
Yeah.
just so clever. And you can tell like both films were obviously filmed back to back, right? And it was obviously a decision to split them. And I kind of love that because they're very different in pace. And it makes
Yes.
sense. Absolutely makes sense, right?
Yeah, I agree. I love watching them back to back because, like you said, it's easier to pick up on all those little tiny nuances and little things and like callbacks and jokes and even just like throwaway sentences that you may miss because they're so quiet,
Yeah.
like are really important
Mm.
in the storytelling and connecting the movies. But I just love the second one, the way that it's paced and
Mm.
and do you think in the first one that she's like gone through a lot and you kind of feel like, okay, like by this time this is just going to be a bloodbath and she's going to just go kill Bill?
Mm-hmm.
But like the fact that she doesn't really reach her like full come to Jesus rock bottom until this one
Yeah.
makes it even more special. Like this movie really is the one that tests her. The
Mm-hmm.
first one doesn't test her the way this one does.
Yeah. 100% agree. Like this movie, yeah, as you say, like she gets beaten back a lot more in this movie. And we see that, I mean, that's both physically and emotionally. Like she
Mhm.
really gets beaten back. And the emotion on like Uma Thurman, like is that goes up to 100 and beyond. Like
Yeah.
there's certain scenes when you can see the entire scene on Uma Thurman's face alone. Like
Yeah.
that's it. And it's just, I mean, it's magnificent. Like even just the introduction of Bill when we actually get to see him for the first time. David Carradine's wonderful as Bill. Like hit that cold, dry delivery, and that it's just perfect, right? But I have to say as well a little fact I read about Kill Bill 2. So this movie went out to a test audience, and it was just at like one cinema. That was it. And normally when the movie goes out to test audiences, they pass out cards to each audience member, and that's just for like at the end, write down your comments and what you thought, and then you pass them back to like the production team, right?
Right.
When this movie ended, everybody stood up and gave the movie a 10-minute standing ovation. And
Whoa.
because of that, they didn't bother passing out the cards. They thought, well, that's answer enough.
Goodness, 10 minutes.
10 minutes standing ovation. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
I mean, I try and like whenever I'm doing like a podcast recording for something, I try and like put myself back in the place of like seeing it for the first time or hearing it for the first time.
Same.
And I was thinking, like, my God, like I can't even imagine, like, because I can't remember. I know that I loved this movie,
Yeah.
but I don't remember what it felt like to watch Uma Thurman in this movie for the first time. And I'm sure I was gay gasping the whole time. But like her performance is just, it's like a career defining, you know, there's before and after this. Like
hmm
it's just, she really had to pull from everything she had.
Yeah.
For the first one was one thing, but this one, like her being buried alive and shit, like her acting was just unbelievable.
Absolutely. And given the fact that, she pulled all of that out of the bag and still like, she sustained a bad injury, like filming this. So
Yeah.
like when she crashed the car and like really badly hurt her back and obviously still was kind of made to pursue filming the film. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the controversy around that as well, like, the fact that the studio wouldn't give her the footage of the car crash in case she wanted to sue and everything like that, which apparently now upon reading, she's actually got that footage. But it's actually weird. Like Tarantino put out a statement talking about it, and like the newspaper report came out and said that they helped each other gain the footage. So I don't know what's happened with that or whether she's going to pursue anything, but just the fact that she sustained that injury and then is still able to carry on, which is crazy in itself, but then achieve the emotional levels that she achieves and gives that performance and is still so physically active as what she is phenomenal. She honestly deserves all the praise for this movie. She really, really does.
Yeah, she always says I was almost killed making that movie, like jokingly, but it's really not a joke. Like she really, and I think that it had a lot to do with, to be honest, like this franchise going forward.
Yeah.
Because Uma was so passionate about this character and about, she had such a hand in creating this. And
yeah,
I think that there's a possibility that there could have been another one of these movies had she not had such a volatile filming experience. I mean, that's like crazy that they just let her almost die.
Right. And then still continued.
Yeah,
Like
like
it's
didn't
wild.
care.
Yeah. And it's wild. Like in that same like article I was reading, like Tarantino was reflecting saying it's one of the biggest regrets of his entire career. Like
Mhm.
the fact that that happened. But it's it's nice upon reflection to think of it like that. And obviously I know him and Uma Thurman have repaired their kind of friendship from that. But
Yeah.
still you can't blame her for kind of saying, look, I'm out. Like I've sustained injuries that could affect me for the rest of my career. I'm out.
Yeah.
But I just,
1000.
but as a fan, I do say, give me Kill Bill 3. Like,
I
I
know,
really,
I
really
know,
do.
I know. Of course, it's like
Yeah.
my God, please.
Right. But I mean, okay, let's get into it. So, Kill Bill Volume 2. So, the opening, we do get a little bit of like a flashback to the opening that we got, the black and white opening, where we see Bill literally shoots the bride. We get the It's Your Baby. And then I love that all of this is black and white. And then we just get cut to black, the music, that dun, 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 dun. Uma Thurman, looked dead, didn't I? Well, I wasn't. That whole speech at the beginning is just epic. It's just powerful. It's leading right up to this is what you're going to get in the movie. And then that final conviction of, and when I arrive at my destination, I am going to kill Bill. The way she
Yeah.
says that, I'm like, I just get like shivers. What
Yes.
do you think of the opening, Troy?
Well, the thing that I love about it is that it's this like really gorgeous, sort of smoky, like noir black and
Mm-hmm.
white. Like it's a very intentional black and white. It's not just black and white. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like, I know that this is a form, but it's like Technicolor almost. Like it looks like Quentin like drew what colors gray and black. It's just so beautiful and like rich and like buttery looking. And it's like it's cool that she just randomly breaks the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so like playful and fun, and it adds to the campiness of this movie. Like the level of camp involved in this movie allows you to believe that things are possible that like aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Like it lets you just like let go.
Yeah.
You're not really trying to base this in any sort of reality. It's a cartoon almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of solidifies it. Like it's fun.
100, that's the word for it, and that's what I was going to say. It's just fun. You've come to this movie to have fun, and
Mm.
anything else you have along the way, the emotional impact that you have, it's so much more heightened because you get that fun introduction when you think, oh, okay, this movie's going to be fun. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of fun movies, like there's a lot of camp moments, like Pai Mei jumping on the end of her sword, and like
Yeah.
even when he throws the sword back and it lands perfectly into like where the
Yeah.
rest of this, just stuff like that. But you just accept it because that's the tone that's being set. But I think
Yes.
it really heightens and really lets those emotional moments stand out because it's so jarring with that tone. And that's
Mhm.
so clever. Like the ending hits me every time. Just
Yeah.
Uma Thurman kind of crying but laughing in the bathroom. Perfect. And it's
Oh,
so different from, like, as you say, like the campy funness of this second movie, which is just brilliant. But yeah,
yeah.
perfect opening. Love it so much. Then we get the noir kind of continues, right? Where, we go to, it's chapter 6, Massacre of Two Pines. And then this is the church. This is where everything happens. And what I love about this is that we've gone back in time. We know what's going to happen because we've seen it, right? We've seen the
Mhm.
first movie. We know what's the massacre that's going to happen in there. But I love it's like a slow build to that moment. You constantly, it's like tension. Even though they're just sitting there to dress rehearsal, like she's sitting there, Arlene is her name, and she's sitting with
Right.
Tommy, who this is her other life, right? This is like her leaving Bill. She's pregnant. This is her escape. This is her other life. And this is her way out of this deadly Viper assassin life that she has.
Mhm.
And I love like just the pace of this. She's sitting there chatting with her friends, like they're going through like the dress rehearsal. Samuel L. Jackson plays like, the piano in there and it's just saying, what song do you want? Do you want this song? I can play that. And I just love the relaxedness of it. But at the same time, in the back of our mind, we know what is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It feels very like earned.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I love about Quentin's directing and how, when he does this sort of like retelling of this moment back in time, like time bending thing,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel like he's doing it just for the sake of like being stylized.
Yeah.
It's actually like a very earned, like you said, we know that this moment is very gruesome and gory, and like it is the defining moment of this whole film.
Yeah.
but we never get to see it. And he knows that for this entire first part of the movie, all we've done in our minds is fantasize about like how gruesome this was, how it led up to it.
Mhm.
Like we've been obsessing over it in our minds because it's the reason for the movie. So then
Yes.
open the second movie with this scene and finally give us this moment that we've been waiting for to see how this all played out and to finally get an understanding of why Bill did it. Because that's
Yes.
the other thing is you don't take into account. We don't know why he did this still.
No.
The whole film, we still don't know why. It just seems like he's like this mean, evil asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like we're starting to build Bill's character and understand like his emotional direction. Like why did he do this?
Yeah. That's such a strong point. And I love that we get that answered, but we get it answered right at the beginning of the movie. We get told, and he outright says, like, this is why I did it. I loved you and then you left, and
Yeah.
like he wants that kind of answer from her. And I love that that's a parallel to straight after this, Uma Thurman wants answers from him. Like why, like, she even says, like, I never thought that you would or could do that to me at the end of the movie. And like, he just kind of says, well, that happened type thing.
Mhm.
And it's just beautifully played. And I love that moment of when she wants to go outside and get some air, and she's walking, like, that's beautifully shot where you see outside, it's the sunlight, but it's all black and white, and she just walks, and then she hears like that, it's like that bamboo flute type thing that he plays. As soon as she hears that, like, her face, it's just that recognition of Bill's here, and you just get that. And like straight away she walks outside, and I love the calmness where she gets a slight, like, there's a look of worry in her eyes for a second, and then she just walks out and just leans against the post. You see Bill at the side finally, and she's just like, how did you find me? And just the calm moment, because you get a few calm moments from them in this movie before the utter chaos. But those calm moments you just relish in because you know what's coming. And it's beautiful, this moment when, she faces him, the shots of the feet where like she takes a step forward, you see his feet step forward, just all that. It's so beautifully played. And you can just feel the love between them, even though we know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important, like you said, the love between them. It's important for us to understand that, to really understand this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the movie, none of this will mean anything if you don't understand how much these two love each other.
Yeah.
And it's not one-sided. They love each other.
Mm.
Love is nuanced, and it takes this whole film to understand the layers of their relationship, and that what he did to her was vile and evil, but in their world, it's like a thing that almost makes sense in this sick way.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it makes sense to them in this like really fucked up way. Mm-hmm. But like you don't get that unless you go through the whole journey. Like you have to, and that's why this movie requires it to be such a slow, it's more slow. You need it. Because like otherwise there's no emotional element to what she's doing. And at the end of the day, this is like the most emotional response. Like you have to understand the weight of it.
Right, absolutely. And like, because Bill was such a mystery, as you said, like in the first movie, like you only ever saw his hands, like you saw his hand on the sword, you heard his voice, but that was it. It was this mystery that hung over the entire movie. And of course, that's one of the like the drawing kind of lines of like why you come back to the second one. Why did Bill do it? But also, will she kill Bill? But also, will she get her daughter back now? There's like three things that hang over. And I love that one of them is just instantly crossed off. And of course, we explore it more later on when we go into the movie, the big conversation they have at the end, and we kind of get each other's point of view at the end, which I think is played beautifully with like the Superman metaphor and everything like that. But I just love that. There's no kind of, it draws a line as well, distinction between that was the last movie, this is the next movie. We're doing something different now. And I think that's really clever with that. But also, I love the dialogue. This is classic Tarantino dialogue when they go back inside the church. He's like, oh, call me Arlene. And like comes over and he's like, oh, hey. And like, this is my father. Oh my God. Like all of that brilliantly played. But then I love when Bill says to Tommy, when he's like, isn't it bad luck to see the bride in her dress before the ceremony? And then Tommy says, oh, I like to live dangerously. And then Bill says, I know the feeling. The way David Carradine delivers that line, when you know what's coming, it's like dramatic irony, right? Like, they don't know what's coming, but we as an audience do. And when he delivers that line, you just feel it. Like the way he stares him in the eyes, his cold, dry voice when he says it, it's just perfection. Honestly, David Carradine, was fantastic in this role and deserves all the praise for Bill, because he really brought that character to life in a sinister and also loving way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to successfully to do to be an actor in a Quentin Tarantino movie, it's almost like you have to understand that there's like a little bit of humor in everything.
Yep.
Even if it's like the tiniest little itty bitty bit, like even if it's just a line, there's humor.
Yeah.
And that line, like that's so sick and funny. Like it's such a twisted, gross, evil, sadistic thing to say, and it's funny because Bill knows that this guy's about to be murdered, like typically, and that he's just like this blubbering fool, you know, and he's making fun of him, and it's so sad, but also really funny. You know what I mean? And I also just have to say, like, because I'm such a dork about this stuff, the black and white in this scene is so different than the first moment. It's so much more like saturated and sort of like it looks like it was left out in the sun. It literally looks like the film was left out in the desert.
Right.
It's not rich at all. It's like grainy and it's just so beautiful. It's so cool.
Isn't it just, I think you're right, like left out in the desert, it just matches where they are. Like the dryness of just where they are, and just it's beautifully kind of complimentary, but also jarring with what happens next. Like, you know, you're not kind of expecting like, oh, we're getting, and then just when everything kicks off, you're like, wow, it's very jarring in like its presentation. I just love that. Love it so much. Uma Thurman, again, you see this kind of side to her where she still loves Bill, right? And like she comes over and says, do I look pretty? And like gives him like 2 kisses on the lips. And like there's still a lot of love there, but she knows she can't do this. Like she knows she has to take that baby away from that lifestyle. And she almost is just, that's almost her, you know, thinking, this is me saying goodbye to the man that I love to protect my baby, you know. And she even says later on, I chose BB, like I chose my child over you. And we get this is like that line when it comes as a callback to kind of this moment when we see that she's kind of saying goodbye to Bill, and he's obviously not ready to let go, because that beautiful camera shot, you know, as it pulls out of the church, goes past Bill and everybody, and then we see the 4 of them walk into view. That camera shot is epic. It's so good. And I love that, you know, we don't see all the gratuitous kind of violence. We just see them go in. We hear the screams. We hear the guns. The camera pulls away up to the top of the church. And we know what's happened, right? We already know what's happened. And sometimes the best horror for me works when sometimes you don't see what's happening. You just hear. And that, because you create everything in your mind. You think, Jesus Christ, anything that happens in the dark, if you hear something that's happening and you can't see it, you can just hear the result. That for me is always so much more frightening, because it's a mystery. And like, although we know what's going to happen here, just the fact that we don't see it, we hear the screams, for me is just so much more horrifying, right?
Yeah, there's nothing scarier than what you can create in your own mind.
Right.
Being told to be like, it's like the movie Signs. It's really scary up until you see the thing. Because the scariest thing is imagining like what it could be, and like you are going to instinctively create the worst image of what you think is scary. You know? So in that moment where it's like all you can do, like you said, is imagine all of these, say, very well-meaning people that you've got to know in the last 5 minutes. That are like just like nice, dumb people. You know, they're presented as very kind of like simple, just chill, very normal people that are like well-meaning and like care about her. You know, or like this version of her, they care about her.
Right.
It's really sad.
It is. But just again, just beautifully played, like with the tension that builds up. I should say it really emphasizes it more because they seem like lovely people that are there to support her. And then just when we know what's coming, and then when it does come, it's, even though you know it's coming, it still hits, because we've had that extra. In the first movie, they were just bodies on the floor. But here we've gotten to know them a little bit more and see the characteristics. And we're like, oh my God, like this impacts us so much more. It's just beautifully played. So then obviously we cut from there, we go and properly meet Bud. So then we kind of meet him. He's in his trailer. He's out in the desert. Bill's obviously traveling to him saying, look, like he's there basically to warn him, right? He's asking him, have you kept up your sword play? Have you kept up your martial arts? Because, and I think he even says the line, you know, you've got to start like preparing yourself because she's coming. Like, and she's coming for her revenge. And Bill kind of downplays it a little bit at first. And he says, like, have you still got your sword? And he's like, oh, I pawned it. And he's like, you pawned a priceless Hattori Hanzo sword. He's like, oh yeah, $250. I got a phone. Like you can see Bill's face. He's like, what? Like, are you insane?
I know, I love it. He's like, but it's priceless. And he goes, I guess not.
Yeah.
Because I was paid for it.
Yeah. Love that so much. But I mean, just like this moment, I mean, this kind of I think Bud, what we do see of Bud is great in this movie. I mean, one of the scenes I will hold my hand up and admit with Bud, I do fast forward or skip through when I come for a rewatch because for me it doesn't add a lot to the movie.
Mhm.
But what I will say is, before we go into that point, is I love the line when he says, "That woman deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die." Like that is such an epic tagline of this movie. And like the way he just delivers that, it's like camera side on his face, looking out into the desert, not even looking at Bill. He's just looking out into the desert. And it's just reflecting at that point. He says, that woman deserves her revenge and we deserve to die. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And that's kind of the tagline of the movie. And I love that. But yeah, like obviously when we go into chapter 7, which is the lonely grave of Paula Schultz, this is the scene what, for me, if you took this out of the movie, it wouldn't change anything. It's the whole Bud going to his job. We see that it's exposure on his character, like with his workplace. He obviously works at the strip bar and he's like a bouncer there. And then he's getting shit off his boss and like all of that. And then one of like the dancers later on says, oh yeah, well, the toilets need cleaning. And I get that it's there to kind of show that he's just run down. He's like not keeping up with any of that kind of lifestyle. He's just like basically like living the bum life in a trailer and, in the desert. But for me, what do you think of this, Troy?
Well, it's ironic that you say that because when I was younger, when I would watch this like religiously, I would always fast forward that scene. And like only that scene, like there is no other scene in the entire film, 1 and 2, that I fast forward.
Yeah.
Always just that moment. And like watching it back this time, like I do understand, like you said, why it's there. We have to understand these people's lives, even if they're on screen for just a couple minutes. Like even Vivica Fox, like she was on screen for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But like the weight of her death really meant something.
Oh yeah.
And I do think it's important to show what little he feels he has to live for. So it's like this sort of like cavalierness about her coming back. He's like, she'll probably kill me or I'll kill her. But like, either way, like I'm kind of fine with it. It's going to play out how it's supposed to play out. And in the world of like karma, yeah, we do deserve to die. So she might kill us.
Yeah.
But like, oh, well, he's not like white knuckling it for this life that he has. He has nothing to live for. Right. So I did kind of understand it, I guess, this time coming up, just like the weight of her coming to all of them and like what it means for all of them is like so different,
Yeah. And you know what? I agree with you. That's a really interesting way of looking at it because every other person that she has a fight with, like they, to a degree, like put up the fight, and really kind of battle back. And I think with Bud as well, you're right. Like it is kind of like, because we've seen that exposition on his life, he is kind of just like, whatever. Like the fact as well that, he talks about how Blasé talks about the sword is another big hint as well. The fact that, although he still has it, and obviously he's still a not Bill, which is why he's saying he sold it. He's getting at Bill at that point, right? Trying to like get under his skin. But you can just tell, like, as you said, he's got this job. It's just a job. Like he's not bothered. Like he's just living that solo lifestyle and he is kind of checked out. Like that's his story. I'm just checked out of this. It's like, I can't be asked type thing anymore. If she kills me, she kills me.
Yeah. And I feel like you and I, the last time we talked about, and the first one, like this idea that, there's still like a moral high ground in this universe. It's like morals and there are like societal standards and like the way that you kill somebody needs to be like at a certain standard. Like you don't like fight dirty, you don't hide rocks behind your back.
Right.
But the way that Bud tries to kill her is like very classless.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very tasteless.
Yep.
And it's like gross. And I think obviously we're gonna get to it, but there's like this unspoken, like when she's looking at him in his eyes and like wanting to kill him, it's like, yeah, I want to kill you because you're about to kill me. But like, this is like gross. Like what you're doing is like, this is like a really low brow way to go about killing me.
Right. Yeah, it's disrespectful. And that's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of like
that's exactly it.
the conversation with Elle as well. Like later on, she highlights that. She's like, the biggest I had was regret.
Yeah,
Because, like, the fact that you, a person like you, did that to one of the greatest warriors, you
yeah,
did that to her is just disrespect. And it
right.
absolutely is. And, like, I mean, we'll get to that. So obviously, he returns back to his trailer. Uma Thurman is there waiting with the sword, which she's still wearing the same clothing that she fought Vanita Green in, which I actually love that. Like, she's
Yeah.
gone straight from there, straight to Bud. And then obviously opens the door. He's waiting there, blasts the rock salt at her, and like knocks her back, falls on the ground. And I love this little parallel when when Bud is talking about when he's talking about, like, he's saying like, oh, that rock salt must be like stinging right about now. That must be really hurting. She's lying there just, and I love the parallel and the callback to when he gets the money off Elle and gets stung in the face. And she's the one talking to him whilst he's laying like on the ground
Yeah.
in pain. And I love like that little callback. It's really, really well done. But then obviously, he does that, knocks her back. He calls Elle and then says to her, "Look, do you want to buy a Hattori Hanzo sword for $1 million? You can have this. I've got her here. She's tied up. She's not dead yet." And then we cut to that and I love when Elle even says on the phone, she's like, "She must suffer to her last breath." It's just so well played by, honestly, Daryl Hannah. Just every line she says is genius, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like an Inspector Gadget villain, like, or like
Mhm.
she's like an old cartoon villain. Like you expect that she's gonna come in with like a, I don't know, like a cartoon, like she just is like drawn. You know what I mean? Like I can't believe that she's a human person, but like in the best way.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it goes back to that campiness of the movie where you just accept it. You don't
Yeah.
question like she's a bit OTT. Like,
Yeah.
you just stan her because she's so good in this movie. Everything is delivered with that campy conviction. As you said, it's very cartoonish, very like evil villain. She's got an eye patch on, for God's sake. But
Right.
it just works. It just works so well with the tone, and it's nicely carried over from the first movie as well. Elle's a great character. I really, really think she's performed really well by Daryl Hannah. She just kills it. But
Yeah, there's something interesting too about the fact that she just shows up. Like she's very stylized. It's like you expect that she lives in this like Bond villain house,
mhm,
but you don't know. All
yeah.
you all you can do is sort of like fill in the blanks about her life
Mhm.
and like make it even more rich and like more interesting because she's so like there's you don't know anything about her.
Mhm.
She just shows up in these really stylized costumes with like a really cool car,
Yeah.
and she's pretty and she's very wealthy,
Mm.
and you just don't know where any of it comes from, and I love
I know, like, turns it with $1 million, and you don't know, you just accept it, right? You just think,
yeah.
oh yeah, she would have $1 million. You don't
Yes,
question why.
you don't know
But
why, you just
I
know that she
know.
would. Yeah.
But I love as well, like, what's really nice and kind of drawn on what we said about Elle in the first movie is, like, she's jealous of the bride, right? She's
Mhm.
jealous of the fact that, Elle's the other woman, right? So, like, Bill loved the bride. She loved Beatrix. And I love
Yeah.
that, the fact that, you can see even in the movie, Bud got a Hanzo sword, Bill got a Hanzo sword, and obviously Beatrix got a Hanzo sword. It's all the people that mean the most to Bill. And I know that the bride obviously went to Hattori Hanzo and asked for the sword herself. But Elle obviously sees that and thinks, probably, well, if that bitch can have a sword, I'm
Yes.
worthy of a sword. And
Yeah.
that's why as soon as Bud offers her the chance, she's like, yep, what do you want for it? I'll be there,
Right.
and rocks up. And I just love that.
And even that, it's like the way that she goes about getting it is like not noble.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gross. Like, and like in this universe, like karma is real,
Mhm.
and the way that these people go about things, like it's immediately met with like the universe like giving them back what they deserve times three. Like
Yes.
karma exists in Kill Bill.
Massively. The next scene, obviously, when Bud is standing over like Uma Thurman, she's tied up on the ground and like, is basically saying, wait, you're going to go into the ground tonight. You're
Yeah.
going into the ground tonight. And, they're kind of being smarmy about her. And then like, I love like the moment as well. And he's like, he shows her like, the pepper sprays it, like the mace, puts it near her eye. And he's like, right, I'll burn your eyes out. Which one do you want? Do you want this or do you want the torch? Like the flashlight. And she's like, just nods angrily.
That
But
moment.
isn't it just the look in her eyes when, like, I
Yeah.
think it even says like one of them says like, whoa, like, she's ready to kill, like she has fire in her eyes, and you can just see it, that look on Uma Thurman's face when she's scowling at him. It's so well done, right?
Yeah. It's another one of those like in every dark moment of this movie, there's humor. And it's so Quentin that
Yeah.
he actually that he Bud would make her point to the fucking flashlight. Like, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and it's so degrading of her to have to do it. Like,
Mhm.
it was just so good.
Yeah, it's so well done. And I love, like, we get the line, like, this is for breaking my brother's heart. And then this is brilliant. Like, I love this when she's put in the coffin. You kind of get a silhouette of her to start with. You see the nails literally being banged into the coffin. And then when it goes black, and all you can hear again is Uma Thurman's breath. You can just hear like more banging. You hear it get lowered, and then just hearing the soil being poured on top of the coffin. And again, it's like, what's happening. She's freaking out, but stylistically, that is a beautiful choice. Where I remember even watching that in the cinema, completely dark screen, but everybody was just like, "Oh my god, it's just tense," and it is inviting you into that moment with her, right? Where you can it's that silhouette of her in the coffin. You feel the claustrophobic with her, right?
You can literally feel yourself like becoming more and more uncomfortable as it goes on, and like as the dirt gets more faint.
Yeah.
It's like and then you can hear them. All of a sudden, everything is like very faint, and at that point she's buried.
Yeah.
And like you hear the car pulling off, and like she's just buried. It's very bleak. Like, there's no immediate relief of it. Like, they just allow you to sit there for a second and like live in her being buried alive and panting and sweating.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And it's perfectly done. And as you say, like, you do kind of grip the chair a little bit when you're watching, because you're like, you feel it. And like, to be in that position, you're like, Jesus, just so well recorded. It reminds me a little bit of have you seen the movie The Descent?
Yes.
The horror movie. So, like the scenes of when like go down underground, there's brilliantly shot claustrophobic moments when like they're in those tight crawl spaces and you're like, oh my God. And you kind of feel it with them. It reminds me so much of that, where you're practically in that coffin with her and you're like, oh my God, this is so tense. It's just really well done. I have to say, Tarantino directed a two-part episode of CSI. And I don't know if you ever saw it, but it involved a character being buried underground in a coffin.
Are you kidding me? I'm like floating off the ground right now. What are you saying?
Seriously. So like he did a two-part because he loves like CSI. I'll send you the link if I can find it. But and it was a two-part episode, and the episode ended. I can't remember the main guy's name, like which run of it was, but he ended up in the coffin. He was buried underground, away from the rest of the team. And the second episode was the team trying to find him and get him out of the ground. But Tarantino did both episodes. It was epic.
That's amazing.
I know, right? And the only reason why I knew about it is because my parents watched like CSI religiously. And like they got to this episode and they're like, oh, Adam, do you know that Tarantino did these two episodes? I was like, I am watching. And just sat down. I was like, this is Kill Bill. But it was so well done to apply this to like a TV show like that. It was epic. But wait, if I find the link, I'll send it to you and you can have a watch.
Oh my God.
The Bride's in the Ground. And then we go to chapter 8. So this is The Cruel Tutelage of Pai Mei. Now, I have to say, I love Pai Mei. I was going to ask you, what do you think of Pai Mei?
I love Pai Mei. I love the break in this movie. The release that it provides, and the way that it just like transports you into this different world. I love the way that it looks. It's even though it's like, in quotes, it would be considered like the most drab in appearance, like, because it's supposed to feel that way. It's very like washed out. The color is very like washed out and saturated, and like it's faded, and it looks like something that happened in the past. Like, it looks like a callback, but like in a really cool way. I just love how vintage it feels.
Yes.
It looks gorgeous, and it's directed different than any other, scene in the entire film. Like it's its own little film, this moment.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite moments in any kind of story, but be a TV film, is the training montage, like a character being trained up to something. All of this, you're right, it's a different style of movie. This is very much kind of this is like harping back to like those kind of, Asian cinema movies where it's like kung fu based and everything like that, but stylistically beautiful. And I love that we get the introduction to that. This scene is gorgeous, one of my favorites. And it's just Bill with the bamboo flute again, telling the bride the story of Pai Mei. So we get that introduction before we even meet him. And that scene is gorgeous. It's like just them two around the fire, in an encampment somewhere at nighttime. You can hear the fire crackling as he's telling the story. Gorgeous. And this obviously is the first Chekhov gun moment where he says, the whole story tells it where basically Pai Mei walked past a monk. He nodded at him. He didn't pay the same respect. So he went in and he wiped out all of the, the monks in basically that place because he didn't apologize. But then we get the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. And he says, Pai Mei never teaches anybody that technique. And you just know at that point, you're like, well, that's going to come back into this.
I better remember that.
Yeah, I better write that down. But oh boy, does it not. Oh God. When we get to that, I'll probably collapse. Yeah. But yeah, then we go from there. Obviously, they're outside of kind of where Pai Mei lives, like down at the bottom of the steps. He's like up high, a bit like a temple, really. And then, he says to the bride, look, he'll teach you, just literally obey everything he tells you. No back talk, no sass, no anything like that. And he even says, he'll pluck out your eye or he'll snap you back at anything like that. And then, I love that he when he says he hates Caucasians, despises Americans, and has nothing but contempt for women. And it's like, oh, well, this is going to be fun.
I know. And Uma is so good at, switching in and out of her sort of old Western identity and the new Uma, the Kyoto Uma. She's so sort of bubbly and excited and eager to learn and in love and young, and you can just feel it. She's such an excited, ignorant student, and but she's not what's the word I'm looking for? She's not tarnished by this world yet. She's excited about all of it still.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's lovely to see that. And that adds more to her character growth. So even by the end of it, when she's hitting the board and eats the rice and everything, she's even different at that point because she's so beaten down. And you understand that journey she's been on, that character arc, just from this training montage alone, which is just fantastic. I love when she goes upstairs and she sees him and straight away she's almost kind of oh, I'm proficient in this style and I'm more than proficient in the exquisite art of the samurai sword. And Pai Mei just laughs it off. He's like, well, that's, just laughs that's nothing, and moves his beard.
It's his so beard. Good. I love it.
Oh, I can't get over it. Just so good. Just that movement alone is fabulous. So good. And then, the demonstration when she gets the sword and does everything. And he's just if you can land a blow, then I'll call you master. I'll bow down, call you master. She obviously can't because he's incredible. And just, their fight and everything. Uma Thurman, it's great to see her let loose like this. Just the physicality of that role and just how the training comes to life and the way that Uma Thurman obviously trained and brought that to life. It's just epic. I love this moment. It's very campy as well, as we said, standing on the sword and doing a backflip and throwing the sword back into the stand. Yeah. I just love this. And I think Pai Mei and her play off each other really, really well.
Yeah, they do play off of each other really well. It's a buddy cop film that you didn't know you wanted.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's so funny to see him sort of making fun of her, but also being in a weird way proud of her.
Yes.
He doesn't want her to see that he's really excited to teach her. There's just a lot of nuance happening there. And but it's respectful. It's campy, but it's so respectful to the movies that it's inspired by.
Absolutely.
And it's how you do a montage, by the way. I 100%. Feel in recent years when people started making fun of montages, they forgot that they used to be a really effective way to move a story along.
Right.
Some of the best montages, some of the most iconic scenes in iconic movies are montages.
Yes.
And to me, in every kung fu iconic movie, any kind of Karate Kid moment or anything like that, the montage, even have you ever seen Three Ninjas?
Yes. Jesus Christ. So ninja, you brought that
up. It's those montage moments are really the ones that you remember.
Yep.
Effective,
100%. You think of the Rocky movie, the montage of him training, running up the steps in Philadelphia, those are the iconic moments. And
Yes.
this, you are absolutely right. It's so well done. The fact, I love the red silhouette with them in shadows when they're fighting alongside. I love that it starts off, it's like just Uma Thurman, then he joins her later on and they fight together. And like even just teaching her the move, you know, I know the Chekhov's gun moment when we get the move with the hand and just that punch. And he says, you know, he even says to her, you know, can you punch through this board like I've done? And she's like, oh, I can, but not from that close. And he's like, well, then you can't do it. It's like, what if your enemy is like inches away from you? You've got to learn to do this. And obviously that's when you think Chekhov's gun, that'll come back into it. Obviously, when we see that later on.
Yeah.
But what I love what you said, Troy, and I really want to pick up on this, is his admiration for her. And that comes through in this. And I think that for me adds so much depth to the Pai Mei character. He's not just a vicious, you know, assassin or like a vicious kung fu master. He's got admiration when he sees it and he'll really push forward with that. You know, like in the little moments of when, you know, she starts to like really get into grips of like that routine of like hitting the board when he's stamping his stick and she's like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And like is in that rhythm of like hitting the board and you see he just moves his beard and just smiles. That little moment is fantastic.
Yeah.
All of that. But then obviously the rice scene as well. You know, when she's trying to eat the rice and her hands are so badly like damaged from hitting the board and she like throws the sticks down, goes to like eat the rice and he like moves the bowl and he's like, if you want to eat like a dog, you can, you know, sit outside and be like a dog. But if you want to eat like a human, pick up the sticks. And then when she manages to do it and you kind of struggle and you watch her struggle.
Yeah.
But I love that she, right? But I love that she does it. And obviously, you know, he's teaching her there, like, you've got to keep dexterity in your hands. You'll lose that by fighting. But just the look on Pai Mei's face of joy when she does it is everything. That for me is like, it's the moment where, you know, as you said, it's admiration. He's like, she's got something in her.
Yeah.
And when you find out at the end, like he taught her the move, it's because of those moments that worked up to that, right?
So special. And it's like, you know that he wouldn't waste his time otherwise. Like,
yes,
Bill literally said, like, he'll just kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he literally would just like break your spine.
Yeah.
If he was like a waste of his time.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he feels the need to like even devote time to her just proves that he like really cares about her and like really sees something special in her. But yeah, that moment with the, and again, I'm such a dork for this stuff, but like the lighting and the color of that scene with the rice.
Yes.
Oh my God. How the light is coming into that window and it's like, it feels like wet and rainy and sort of cold, and it just is so, it's so pretty.
It's beautiful. It is. It's such a contrast from like she's been outside training, where been carrying water, where it's been warm, you know, she's been fighting in the sun. And like even the opening moments of when they had their fight together and like, you know, like she goes to hit him with a rock, he grabs her arm and like is saying basically like he could break her arm at any minute and he warns her at that.
Yeah.
You know, and then he says like, this is my arm now, you know, it belongs to me. And then, you know, he's even saying like, you know, are you going to train up and make it stronger? And she's like, yes. And he says, that's the beginning. And that's the moment when he sees something. But yeah, like you contrast that to this, as you said, you feel the cold and the damp and how freezing it must be. Even like when Uma Thurman's asleep and you see with her hoodie up and like she's dreaming about punching the board and punches the wall. I just love it.
So good.
Isn't
and I'm so glad that you brought up the rock scene. To me is so important.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important scenes of the whole movie.
Agreed.
I think that it symbolizes the difference between the way she fights and the way that her teammates, the way that they all fought, and also including Bill.
Yeah,
they did something dirty, like them coming to the church and killing her. That is the equivalent of hiding a rock behind her hand.
Yes,
you know, like Bud shooting her with fucking rock salt. It's like that is that. You know what I mean? It's just gross. Like it's tasteless and gross, and it's almost like anybody can do that. Like any like shitty person who doesn't know what they're doing can hide a rock behind their hand and like hit a person like Pai Mei who's like skilled. Sure, you could do that, but it's like tasteless.
Yes, that's such a great point that you brought up there. It's so prevalent to the whole movie. Like that's the point when she becomes the assassin that we know. It's from that point when, you know, that throwing the rock out of her hand, that's almost him saying, get rid of all that shit. You don't need that anymore. What I'm going to teach you to do with this arm, that's what's important. And that's when we see that old side die, kind of, you know, the because all she's kind of known from this point is like being trained by Bill and like being part of the Deadly Viper Assassin Squad. She's obviously seen that style of fighting, but he's that throwing that rock out of her hand is the transition of get rid of all that. That's gone now. What I'm going to show you is important. And like all the time he's testing her, all the time.
Yeah.
So even when he's been like vile to her, you know, and he's like saying these horrible things to her, he's looking for a reaction. And that's him testing her to see, like, am I going to get any sass? Am I going to get any back chat? It's him testing her the whole time. And that, you're right, like that moment with The Rock is so important, because this is then we get the assassin bride that we then know from the rest of the movie. And it's just, oh, it's so powerful. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the sass thing too. It's like, yeah, am I going to get, because then we know what that looks like. You know, we know like what it looks like for you to be a disappointment to him.
Yeah.
It looks like hell.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll wear that for the rest of your life. You know, and it's just, oh, so good. So good. Honestly, Pai Mei is just one of the highlights of this movie.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, then we go back to the coffin scene, right? So we go back, and again, like, I love the slow crawl of this whole scene. The music as well, that Western music is beautiful. That plays. So like, you know,
it's my favorite song in the whole both movies.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It makes me cry.
It's so uplifting though. You know, just that dun 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 dun. It's just oh. But I love that you see her struggle and like how hard it is to get that knife out of her boot. So like you see her moving her feet and then kind of like edging down to get the boots off, and you can, right? And like it's like an achievement unlocked on a game. Like, it's just the fact that she did it, and it's just when she gets that knife out of her boot and you hear the music playing, she kisses the knife. It's like that moment of it just lifts the whole scene. Yeah. And again, like, you know, when I love as well, like everything she does is physically, you see her do. It's like moving the torch with her like head, so they put it on her neck to like then get a better view of like cutting the rope, and just that moment of when it comes open and she's like, and that's like, oh my God, I've done it. Right, keep going, get it open, and then just that moment knocking. This for me is iconic. Knocking on the coffin and then finds it, and just that line, okay, Pai Mei, here I come. And just that hand and hitting. It's funny, like when this movie first came out, for years afterwards, I just go up to my brother and just do that on his back. Like just at random points.
I feel like that was like a thing, like you had, like as a young person, I would do that and be like, okay, I will. And I used to think it was so cool that she would do it until her hands bled. I thought that was like so badass, and like that you could see the skin ripping and just like so. But in that song, it's like, it's so perfect for the scene. It's like almost the purest Western, emotional Western song I feel like I've ever heard.
Agreed.
Like it is the truest definition of like a Western song.
Yeah.
And it's that the horn in the background doing that little like
yes,
like, that her, you know, like, oh, it's so good. It's beautiful.
It is. It's like pure spaghetti Western, like in this film. And then I agree, like that's one of my favorites, but my absolute favorite is the music that plays when she's actually killed Bill and he stands up. That music, whenever I hear that, I get a little bit teary. It like lifts me up. It's so strong. But this music for that slow crawl and the way the music builds with her as she's getting more accomplished and getting out is just perfect. It's so good. And as I say, when it reaches its climax, I love as well, like that shot of her, like she's climbing up through like the mud and through the dirt, and you kind of see her in the background as she's climbing up. And then we get the very Buffy season 6 episode 1 hand out of the ground and then smacking down, and like the music stops there when the hand comes out, and it's just perfect. Obviously she's kind of getting pulled a little bit back in, pulls herself out, but this is the comedy of the film. When I love when she's like walking towards the calf. And like she's going across the street, like just smoke, mud, everything coming off her, and the guy's face, and he's just like, "What the fuck?" Just going towards the cafe.
Like a woman has literally crawled out of the cemetery across the street, and she's coming to order water.
Like, may I have a glass of water, please?
It's just, and like at that point, it's like you're so emotionally invested in her journey. The thought of her dying that way is just so it goes against everything that we know at this point. And it's like, no, like you have to get out. And I feel like at that point Quentin knew This music is perfect for this scene. This is like, you won't be rooting for her more than you will in this moment so far.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is the moment where you're like, you are like, your heart is tethered to this woman. You
Yeah.
know what she's been through. You know what she's capable of. And you know that this is like a really gross, like just fucking hillbilly ass way to take out the most deadly woman in the world. It's sick. So
Yeah.
she deserves this moment.
Absolutely. And like the fact that, she overcame that. Like she crawled out of her own fucking coffin and
Yeah.
like, went through the dirt and literally came out and like was just like, right, that was pure hell. That was disgusting. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stop. And it just shows you that determination, that will. And as you said, you are behind her the whole way,
Mhm.
because like we want to see her get her revenge. We want to see her meet up with her child again. And just like it just doesn't stop her, it doesn't derail her. Of course, we have that moment of reflection and like, how am I going to get out of this? But she just overcomes that. And we just get to see that beautiful emotional vulnerability to her in that coffin, but it doesn't stop her. And then we get this chapter 9, Elle and I. So then obviously Elle's driving to Bill. Elle is driving to Bud. She's going to go and pick up the sword, which we know. But then I love that we see like the Uma Thurman shots of her walking through the desert. Like, just that beautiful heat you can see as she's walking through. She's just barefoot. So obviously must be burning hot. And then I love that she like climbs up the mountain. We kind of see down and she sees like Elle arriving at Bud's trailer. And then again, we get the classic siren, the zoom in on the eyes. Wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah. She's like, these two are going to die. And then, yeah, this whole conversation I love, by the way, between Elle and Bud. This whole scene is just fantastically done by both actors. Like Bud's just so, again, blasé, like, swords over there. Is that my $1 million in that bag? Yeah, then it's your sword now. Just so blasé. Hands are like this slushy drink full of alcohol. It's just like, he just gives her that. And I love like the conversation when he says to her, look, what do you feel? What's the biggest R that you feel now? Is it relief or is it regret? And that's so important for the next part of this scene. Because obviously, she says, a little bit of both. And he's like, no, that's horseshit. Be real with me. And she's like, okay, it's regret. And he's like, right, fair enough. And then when he opens that bag and takes the money out, and there's that black mamba in there and strikes his face. Again, it's a nice callback to that moment of when he shot Uma Thurman's character. She was writhing around in pain, and now he's doing that while somebody else is talking over him. But what's nice, and I think is clever about this, is it's not Uma Thurman herself, like not the bride who killed him, but it's still a black mamba, and that's Uma Thurman's character's name, the Black Mamba. So in a way, it's still an extension of her taking out the Deadly Viper Squad because it was the snake that she's named after. And I love that little reference. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's like it's karma.
Yes.
It's the universe like doing what it needs to do to take. It's like you can't just do that and then expect that you come out in the end with a suitcase with $1 million and you get to just go live your life. Like, no.
Exactly.
That's not how this universe works, And I love that they spend so much time in his trailer too, because it's such a like it's like an I Spy book.
Yeah.
It's like the set is so cool. It's so like well done. The whole thing is just like so rich, and you just want to like look around. Even the moment where he's making the like that like gross margarita, and he turns on the blender and you can't hear her for a second, and then he turns it off and you can, and it's just such an interesting set piece. And I just like love being in that trailer. It's just so cool.
Same. And like the payoff for that as well is like the fight scene when they're grabbing every single item and throwing them at each other. Like, and it's just full of those moments when you're like, oh shit, like they're doing that. And it is, it's like, it's dirty, it's gross. It's not like like contrast that with when the bride fought against like Lucy Liu's character already. That beautiful outside with the snow falling, very respectful kind of fight, right? Compare that with this. And it's beautiful with the scrappiness of the fight that happens in there. It's the perfect surrounding that complements that type of scrap, because it's literal scrap, like what he lives in. And it's gorgeous. And as you say, like, it's so well done. Everything's so well placed. And it's so believable of like Bud would live there. Like it's so well. And as you say, the blender's filthy when you see when he's like pressing the buttons and it's just gross. Just all of that, like the spit can that he has, just all of it is gross. But it's so well done for that character.
And it's funny because it's like, even though he, I know obviously we're gonna get to it, but even when he's dead, his presence is so felt in their fight. Because they're fighting in his world. So it's like Bud's spit can and Bud's toilet and Bud's bathroom and Bud's, all of his shit is everywhere. So it's like he's very much like in it still. It's just funny.
He is absolutely. Even like during the fight when like she literally rolls over Bud's body, like to go to a move, and you're just like, what? It's just so good. Good. Yeah, you are, and you're absolutely right. That's a great way to put it. They're still in Bud's world, and that's exactly what that scene is. As he's kind of lying there riding around, and the L's like reading to him about the Black Mamba facts. And I love like just that little moment of gargantuan. I love that word. I've always looked for a reason to use that word. And just that little cutaway of that, it's brilliant. So obviously then, Bud dies. She gets on the phone to Bill and says, I found him dead. She released a Black Mamba into his trailer. And she's like, go smoke some pot. I'll be there shortly. This fight is just everything. Is this everything? Fight?
Yeah.
So I have to say, like, there's a special place in my heart for when she kills Bill, and that little kind of the microscope of that fight is just everything. But in terms of overall fight, I think it's this one. Because I love the scrappiness. I love the lines in the corridor. It's just so well done between them. It's just so vicious. It's so scrappy. Like everything from it. The moment like Uma Thurman's fighting with no shoes on, for God's sake. Yeah. And you feel every single punch in this. You feel every single connection. Like when Elle at one point stands on her feet and you feel that. Like the moment of when like Uma Thurman grabs the lampshade and hits Elle with it, and like she grabs a guitar and starts to fight with her. Like when she gets the sword out of her hands with a chair, and just every punch. As I say, she rolls over Bud's body at one point, and like all of that, literally throwing each other through the rooms, putting their head in the toilet, flushing the toilet, like throwing the spit can on it. All of it, I think, is just so impactful. It's literally tearing down that trailer so these two icons can fight.
Yeah, it's choreographed beautifully.
Yeah.
You said every connection feels so intense. Like even the moment where she kicks her in her chest and she falls back into the corner of the table.
Yeah.
And you can see her body slam against the corner, and it's so intense. Like it just feels so real.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's a small space, and the camera is like very up on them while they're fighting to make so that you understand that they are literally fighting like a foot away from each other the whole time.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to go. The point that like even when she tries to take out her sword, she can't even get it out because it hits the wall and it goes back in. It's like they are up. It's like a cat. It's cats in a bag.
Yeah.
Literally. And I just love like the closeness of it. There's nowhere to escape, and they have to be really scrappy because they can barely turn around.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I love as well the moment when they both kick each other and they fall back and we get the split camera. It's almost like they're just evenly matched at this point. Like there's not one above the other. They're like perfect parallels of each other. And then obviously they both get back up. We get the fight again, and just, it's fabulous. And like, again, when Elle, like just the conviction from Daryl Hannah when she's like, hi-ya! And like just kicks her back into the wall and you hear her. And then she's like, right, I'm going to go and get the sword now. And I love that moment of when, like the bride's like taking a breath. She's just like, and like just spots the sword and like reads it. It just reads it so innocently. I love that. Just the old man I ever loved, Bill. And like just stands up. Yeah. Such a nice delivery. This hallway scene, like I am campaigning for a spoken word lip sync on Drag Race to be done to this hallway scene.
Yes. Oh my God.
Me that. Yeah. Can you imagine two drag queens on either side of the stage doing this amongst each other? Give me that any day.
Queens love Kill Bill.
Exactly.
We people love Kill Bill too. So yes.
Perfect. But I think I can probably do this line for line. If I'm honest, I just love it so much. It's so good. Like just the delivery between them, like, Uma Thurman's standing there, even though they've just kicked the shit out of each other. Uma Thurman's standing there so still, so calm, so proud. And like, just the moment she like turns the Hanzo's sword to him, and she's like, oh, he said he pawned it. And like,
Yeah.
I love like Elle's really playful in this moment.
Uh-huh.
She's like very playful, very villainous. And like,
Yes.
and then you get like Uma Thurman's character is just saying things very dry, very straight, like, I'm going to fucking kill you. That's her tone, just very dry. Even just the delivery. Guess that makes him a liar now, don't it? Just very dry. And just the moment of L, B, just that the little bits between them. What did you say to Pai Mei to make him snatch out your eye? And like the way like she delivers, like, I killed, like, I killed Pai Mei, I killed your master.
Yeah.
And like all of that. And I love that how evil she is when she's laughing. She's like, I poisoned his fish heads. Like, it's so good. And like just laughing about it. It's perfect. And
it
like,
makes me laugh really hard when she says like, I killed that miserable old fool. And then they show her and she's like, you miserable old fool.
No, like kicks him.
When she kicks him down, it's so like when he has the fish head and he's like, it's so like it's so camp and and the music raising up in the background. You know what I mean? It literally is a cartoon.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's perfect. And it's fabulous. And then like the way even Daryl Hannah says, like, which in the very immediate future will become my sword. And like she purses her lips when she's like just towards her. No need for it, but love it. Like the line, bitch, you don't have a future is iconic. Yes. And then the moment, as you said, the music is like build up at this point. They're both standing. Like I love the moment that they draw the swords and point them at each other as well. It's like a sign of respect, which in this scrappy, horrible site that they're in, we still get that beautiful sign of just, this is it. This is the final kind of dance. Yeah. And then when they rush towards each other in the hallway and we get the close-ups of their faces, the zooming in on the eyes, and but just those cut shots that and then when she snatches her eye, that is just, I remember when I watched that in the cinema, people cheered. It was just perfect. Nice little throwback to like, in the first film when she does that, when she's fighting the crazy 88 and she pulls the guy's eye out. Again, just that snatching it out. And Daryl Hannah's acting here is phenomenal. And she's like screaming and like is rolling around, just saying, I'll kill you. And like Uma Thurman's just so soft, drops the eye, stands on it, and squashes it. What's your thoughts, Troy?
I mean, for one thing, you know that Quentin is always going to get his little foot moment with Uma.
Yeah.
Always going to get his Uma doing something with her toes moment. Just like hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it's so well acted and it's so like, it's a boss fight. And obviously Quentin had like a very clear understanding of that we're going to be looking at this as this is the boss fight. Or like, this is like that fight in a video game that leads to the boss fight that it's like when have you ever played Resident Evil?
Yeah, I played every single one.
Okay. All right. So in Resident
Evil,
fan. You randomly enter a room and it's like, oh, there's 8 grenades and there's 12 machine gun rounds.
And lots of herbs. Yeah.
I wonder why what's going on in a typewriter. Yeah. That's so weird. I wonder if I'm about to fight. Yeah, like it feels like that. And yeah, like you said, I love when the cameras like pan up on their faces and it's like, they both have these big blue eyes and it's like, these are Bill's girls. These are like Bill's ladies, fighting each other. And and then the moment when she does rip it out and it's just pure silence.
But no, you're right. And like, I love that, she just leaves her there. And that is a fate worse than death. Can you imagine? Like, you're in a trailer in the middle of a desert. You cannot see where you are. Like, no idea where your keys are for that car. And even if you find them, how are you going to drive away? And like, I just love the moment of when she's like screaming around in the bathroom, like, trying to get up and she just can't see a thing. Obviously in masses of pain. And I just love when like the bride just looks over at her like that and then just walks away. Yeah. And she just thinks you're defeated and just leaves her to die. And I think that's so representative of what she thinks of Elle, but also it's comeuppance again. Elle is this nasty, vicious character who nearly killed the bride in her sleep. Orders Bill, of course, but she took pleasure in doing it. And it's just that moment of, it's that comeuppance. It is that revenge. It's that just, you got what you deserved.
Even the way she killed Bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was gross. Like, it was not noble. You know what I mean? Absolutely. It's not the way that they go about things. And I love that to add insult to injury, there's like a moment right before right before she leaves, where Elle like face plants into the mirror and shatters the glass
Yes.
all over
Yeah.
her face and hands. And
Hmm.
it's like, it truly is worse than death.
Yeah.
Like, and it's what somebody as vicious as Elle deserves, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is a beautiful moment of like, she'll never see that reflection. Like it's just literally
Mhm.
like the whole sight of that has been shattered. It's
Yeah.
just, it's gorgeously played, so well played. And just the slamming of the door at the end as well, just to kind of cement the end of that is
Yeah.
fantastic. And then we go to the last chapter, which is literally called Last Chapter, Face to Face.
Yeah.
So obviously this starts, and again, this was one of these scenes when I was younger and I'd watch, I'd be a bit like, because obviously she drives to see the guy who it's Esteban, who Bill, obviously he was always like a father figure to Bill, right? So she goes to see Esteban, who's like a pimp, and like, but she knows like I will need to go to him. He'll know where Bill is. What's your thoughts on this scene, Troy?
This is another scene that I infamously used to fast forward all the time.
Hmm.
But also like, I can't express to you how many years I spent quoting this man.
Yeah, yeah.
With my mother, which is like actually so inappropriate, but me and my mom just like thought he was so funny when he goes, when he's like, you could be one my lady.
Yeah,
It's so disgusting,
yeah.
so gross, but his voice is so memorable.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, and now that I watch this as an adult, obviously I look at this as a little bit more nuanced. Like,
same.
I understand now, we just had this fight between Elle and Uma.
Hmm.
And it's ironic, like Bill obviously he had a type,
Hmm.
and the way that he pitted these women against each other and sort of would clearly replace them. It's almost like he like had learned what he knew from this man.
Hmm.
Sense.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
and you look at him and you think, wow, it's so gross that this guy's talking about literally slicing the faces of these women, but
Hmm.
like feels no different.
Yeah.
He
Hmm.
they the same.
Yeah, you can see that learned behavior that like Bill's taken as well. Yeah, it's like especially when one of them, the girls, comes over and you can see the slice like on her lips, and just
Mhm.
that moment of when like Uma Thurman looks up at her and kind of like looks away as if to say like shit, like I recognize this behavior. I
Yeah.
see like why Bill chose him as a father figure,
Yeah.
and then she's kind of playing a game with him as well. Like absolutely, she knows that she just wants information from him, and like she just earns it. She says, look, like, and even he knows what Bill's like. So he knows like this is gonna happen. Like, and just that conversation between them is meaningful for that reason. And I'm pleased that watching it again, like when I watched Kill Bill 2 the second time, I didn't skip anything. I watched it all through. And I'm so pleased I did. Because as you said, the nuances in these scenes, like they just mean so much more for those character moments. It's perfectly coherent within the film. It just makes sense. And like Uma Thurman's reaction on that straight away, it tells you everything you need from that scene alone. It's really well played.
Yeah, 1000%. And it looks beautiful.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
It's stunningly shot.
Mm.
The scene where she's driving and the camera is behind her and her head is just kind of like
Yeah.
bobbing the
Bobbing.
road.
Yeah.
Gorgeous,
Hmm.
stunning. And it's like all of the colors are now very like bright,
Yeah.
we're like in this really tropical, gorgeous location, and
Hmm.
everybody's wearing like these neons, and it's stunning.
It is. And like I love what Uma's wearing. Like we've got this
Yeah,
long like blue dress, but also like the big kind of skirt at the bottom and then this black leather jacket over the top. And
yeah,
those glasses, iconic.
yeah,
Like what a look. What
yeah.
a look. And I love that that's the final look we get her in. Like just
Mhm.
like like this skirt and everything, it's iconic for the end of this film, which is just fantastic. But then,
Yeah,
yeah, she obviously finds out Bill's location and then she goes to his home. And I love this. It's very kind of like a spy, like breaking in, like the way she's doing it. She's suddenly got a gun, which is the first time we've seen her with a gun, and
Mhm.
like going in and like, kind of peering around the corners. And I love the slap in the face that we get watching, as well as what Uma Thurman gets when she goes around and sees BB and Bill, and they're just like, bang, bang. And like, you're dead, mommy, so die. And she's
yeah,
just, Uma Thurman's acting for the rest of this film here at this point is just pushed beyond 100. Like the
yeah,
look on her face of like pure shock, pure like, oh my God, there's my daughter. Like she's alive. Just Bill's there. Like, how's he got? You see it all in her face. Like even when he's talking, like the tears are coming down, and then she just plays along. When she like is like, oh, baby, because she knows that's what her daughter would want. That's what would make her daughter happy at that moment.
Yeah.
She just plays along. She's like, whoa, and like throws herself around and falls down, pretends that she's dead. I mean, it's just great, right?
I know, and I love it. She's like, what does she say? Like, I should have known.
Yeah.
You are the best.
The best.
It's so cool. The acting is just unbelievable. And it's like, she also like doesn't want to scare her kid.
Right.
Because it's like she just walked in with a gun. She's about to shoot Bill's head off. And all of a sudden it's like this, it's a complete 180.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting, you mentioned that she brought a gun.
Mm.
It's our first time seeing her with a gun. And it's almost like her intention was to be dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like her intention was to be like, listen, I've been fairly noble this whole time. I've killed a ton of people. This time, I'm showing up with a fucking gun and I'm shooting this man in his head. Like, we're not having like a noble, classic ninja fight out under the spotlight. Like, I'm shooting you.
Yeah. And as well, like, it's the perfect revenge because he shot her in the head.
Exactly.
So it's almost like the moment of, you're going to shoot me. I came back from that. Let's see how you like it if you get shot in the head and see you come back from that. It's just, it's really, really nicely, like a nice little throwback to the very beginning of the movie as well. It's really well played. And then I love all of the dialogue here. It's like, we've had this build up of this movie where we've had like, she's been trained. We've seen the fight with Elle. Like it's been building. And when we get to that point of when she spins around, she's got the gun. It's just all like paused and relaxed. And like all for dialogue, but all of the dialogue here is so important. When like, Bill's talking to the daughter, like about Bibi, saying she's learned about what life and death means, like how important that is because she took the goldfish out and put it on the floor and stamped on it. And then like the moment that she lifted her foot up, she understood what she'd done. And like that's a pure metaphor for the whole movie. Like he says that, I realized at that point when I shot your mother, like, when I shot mommy, I realized what I'd done. And it's the beautiful message of that scene there, which is just so well played. All the while when he's just making a sandwich for them, like as he's talking about, it's so casual. And the little actress is fantastic. She's so good.
Amazing.
Isn't she just so good?
Incredible. And I don't know if this is intentional, but it's like, it always, whenever she describes like killing the fish, it's just ironic that Uma kind of did the same thing with Elle's eye.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and she had like a similar experience. Like if it like kind of probably felt like smushing a fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny. But yeah, the little girl's acting is just so natural. And I love when she says, when she goes, "What's wrong? Were you a bad daddy?" That's hilarious.
It's so good.
She just like said it that way, Yeah.
And it's just every line she delivers is perfect. Like it's really, really well done. And as I said, the chemistry between Uma and that actress as well is phenomenal. Like it's just believability. And again, like even when, he's like tucking her into bed and she's like, what movie do you want to watch? Like, oh, Shogun Assassin. He's like, no, that's too long. And Uma's like, it's perfect. Like as if to say, back off. This is our moment.
Yeah.
You leave alone now. Like even Bill understands that. He's like, right, leaves you alone. And I love that they watch Shogun Assassin because it's a very similar story. It's about a child who has a parent who's a master assassin as she's laying in bed with her mother who is exactly the same. Like perfect parallels for that. It's just so well done. By the way, great movie if you haven't seen it, Shogun Assassin. Really, really good.
I've never seen it. Right.
But yeah, it's great. But yeah, and then obviously, tucks her in. And then we get this, the epic long kind of speech here from Bill, which I think is great. It's such an important speech. And it kind of sums up, the bride's character perfectly. Obviously we get that comedic moment again when he shoots her in the knee with a truth serum with the dart. And like, she's like, what the fuck did you just shoot me with? Like this massive dart sticking out of her knee. Just love it so much. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
I know, right? But then like, I love like, this whole speech is so important. When he's talking about like, when he's like, my favorite superhero was Superman. And he talks about saying like, he's not like other superheroes like Spider-Man or like anyone like that. He's like, when they wake up, they have to put on a costume and they become the superhero. And he's like, well, Superman already is Superman. He puts on the costume to pretend he's a person. And what are
Mhm.
the characteristics of that? You know, he pretends he's weak, he's bumbling, and yet he's the strongest man on the world. And he's like, that's you. Like, you were wearing the costume in that church. Like, that wasn't you. You were like bumbling. You were like, said you were in love with this guy. He's like, well, some dumb fuck. And like, you know, is talking about him and saying, that is you. You were putting on this costume to play somebody else, but really you are that assassin. And then it's an interesting point, but then I love when Uma Thurman comes back and she's like, yeah, but I chose BB. That's why I did this. That's why I did all of this. That's why it's so important, because I knew that you would take her. I knew that she'd be raised in this type of lifestyle around assassinations, around crime, everything like that. I didn't want that for my child. And you know, she even says the line, she was like, before that stick turned blue, I was your girl. You know, I'd do anything for me. I'd jump from motorbike to moving vehicle, which by the way is a reference to a Michelle Yeoh movie when she does that. So
Oh, cool.
Michelle Yeoh does a stunt when she goes off, like jumps off a motorbike onto a moving train, and that is a exact reference to that movie. And
Oh, I
Tarantino
love
actually said
that.
himself, it's really cool. But yeah, and she's like, but when that stick, after that stick turned blue, I became a mother. And that's so important for this whole film. I mean,
Yeah.
we get that a little bit as well. When she's explaining, and she's in the hotel room doing like the pregnancy test scene, and like I just love again how campy that is with the little fight. Karen Kim, like with the
Yeah. I know. And like even the moment when she says like housekeeping and she drops the pregnancy test, it's like the
yeah,
choreography of her, like it's pure camp
yeah,
when she stands up and then she like twists the gun and like it's
yeah.
just perfect. It's gorgeous.
It's like a music video. It's
Yeah.
just so well done. And then like when they're having the face off, and like again, it's breaking up the tension of the scene with comedy. When you know she's
Right.
saying like, you know, check the stick down there, like the instructions are right there, and she's like,
Mhm.
I can read, thank you. And again,
Yeah.
but I love that she's appealing to this assassin as a woman and as a mother. And I
Mhm.
think that's so important when she does that in that moment. And she sees, like, you see how Karen Kim reacts, how she leaves. She's like, just go home. And
Yeah.
she goes home. And that's what Uma Thurman's doing in this, in that she's leaving that life and she's going home.
Yeah.
And it's so important. Like, it's a nice kind of referential, self reflective moment in that. That's what Uma Thurman's doing. And then it's after that point when she says, like, literally what I said before, that when that stick turned blue, I became a mother. And
Mhm.
it's that moment, it's that realization. It's so well played, right?
It's so emotional.
Mm,
Like it randomly just punches you in the stomach with emotion. Like, this movie up to this point has been, like you said, kind of like a music video. Like it's
yeah.
been just like a joy to all of the senses. And then all of a sudden it's just intensely emotional out of nowhere.
Mm,
And I think that they do a good job of helping you understand the nuances of this weird world and this universe. And you may not like Bill's approach was psychotic,
yeah.
but she understands why Bill would do something like this in a sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like they're having a literal couples argument, but
Mm-hmm.
that's their version of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting. Like they get each other.
Yeah, they do. Like opposite sides of a coin. Like even when, you know, she says like, you know, could you do that to me? Of course you could. But I never thought that you would or could do that to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's perfectly played. It is this couple spat because they understand each other so well and there's still so much love between them. And it's
Mhm.
almost like, I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe you did this to me. You know, and it's just the way that that's kind of brought together this absolute just fire between them, but
Mhm.
also undercurrent by just that love between each other as well. And like, again, that moment of when they're sitting down outside and then Uma Thurman like stabs her sword down and says, "You and I have unfinished business."
Yeah.
And he just says, "Baby, you ain't kidding."
I'm kidding.
I mean, again, perfect. This little fight scene was amazing. I love as well, like earlier on, he even says, he's like, "So how are we going to do this?" He's like, "There's a beach down here, a private beach where we can go at nighttime. It's like beautifully silhouetted in the moonlight. We can have that fight." Nice call back to the Vanita Green conversation when she
Mhm.
says, "There's a baseball diamond, half a league down here. We've dressed all in black, have a night fight." And
Yeah.
it's beautiful that we don't get that again. We
Yep.
get like this, the choreography of this little moment is phenomenal. Where like, you know, she spins around in the chair, her skirt flies around with her, and like, you know, they clash swords as well. Like he whips the sword out and like out of her hands. And then
Yeah.
just when she knocks that sword out of his hand, and when she does the 5-point palm exploding heart technique, the moment that's most epic for me is when she pulls her hand back and you've got the close up of her face.
Yeah.
She has like three emotions on her face there. It's like, this is the final blow. I'm going to kill you at last.
Mm-hmm.
I still love you so, so much.
Yeah.
And I'm killing like the father of BB.
Yeah.
And it's just the way Uma Thurman captures all of that on her face with just that look and then that final whack is just, for me, it's poetry. It's just epic. And like music, oh my God, it's just the best. You know, it starts off just really light and it's like,
yeah.
And like, the conversation between them as well. Like, Pai Mei taught you the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. She's like, of course he did.
Yeah.
It's just.
And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know.
A bad person. And then like, I love that they even have a moment to laugh between each other. And he's like, you know, you're my favorite person, but every once in a while you can be a real cunt. And like they just laugh, like they laugh. And I love the delicacy in this when he's like, how do I look? And like she places her hand on his and takes that moment where she looks at him, tears, and she's like, you look ready.
Ready.
Like,
yeah.
That's it. And it's the final moment when Bill stands up and that music comes in. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God. It just hits me every single time. The look on Uma Thurman's face when she's looking up at him, the way he's looking down at her, and it's just like puts his jacket on properly as well, a sign of respect, like I know I'm going to die, and almost is saying goodbye to her without saying the words.
It's just like dripping on him. It's just, and it's great that, like you said, it's not like this big, explosive, you know, fighting on the beach with swords moment. It's like it's delicate and it's emotional.
Yeah,
and it's complete opposite of of every fight she's had so far.
Yeah, completely agree.
You know, it's the complete opposite of every single fight up to this point. It's the only truly emotional fight.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning.
Like the environment that they're in, that back garden as well, is stunning. Like the backdrop behind Bill when he's walking to his death, like the dark sky, the green like leaves and like trees behind him, and just like, as you said, this is undercut with so emotion, so much love between them as well. And that's the difference. It's the emotion in this fight, and it's that love, that respect they had at each other. And it's almost that I'm saying goodbye to the man that I love. I'm saying goodbye to the woman that I love. No other fight has that. And it means so much because we've built up to this moment and it's perfect. Again, the payoff of Chekhov's gun, we learned about the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. And then when you see her do it, it's just, it looks so cool as well when she does it. It's just epic.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love that we linger on Uma Thurman's face as well when she's just looking at him and just wiping the tears away and just still just watches him as if to say, like, that was my whole life and now it's over. That now it's over.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just obviously from that point she gets up, goes and gets BB, goes into a hotel. And like, I love like this ending as well. Just the softness of this ending. Again, it's like we stepped into another movie here where the color palette's really soft. She's watching a cartoon. She's just chilling out, laughing. Cut to the bathroom. This for me is beautifully played by Uma Thurman when she's just laying on the bathroom floor. She's crying. She's laughing. She's hugging a teddy bear. And it's just that final realization of her of it's finally over. Like, I've gotten out. I've got my child back. It is over. What's your thoughts on the ending, Troy?
The ending is one of my favorite scenes, just acting wise. The way that Uma is able to portray the excitement and the sadness and the relief. And the other thing is, like, I like that this entire time, even in the first one, they really make it a point to show you her, like, her A and B side personalities. Like,
yes, yeah,
there's the killer, there's the, you know, the deadliest woman in the world, but then there's also this like really sarcastic, playful woman who like is actually really chill and like is funny and sarcastic and bubbly and you know, magnetic. Like she's not like a hardened person. She's hardened by this situation.
Yeah.
And they get revenge, but like this isn't like who she is. And I love that they show like she's able to like let that go.
Yeah.
At the end, you know, she can fully just lay on the bed and giggle at a cartoon with her kid. She's not like on, you know, on high alert. Like she's just being herself.
Yeah. completely agree. Like that's what I was literally going to lean into here, where in the first film we see the assassin, in this film we see the mother. Like the emotion she shows in this scene. Don't get me wrong, she's very emotional in the first movie as well, in parts like when she loses the baby, of course, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when you see her, like, take that scene, for example, when she's in the kitchen with Vanita Green, she's like, it's mercy, passion, and forgiveness that I lack, not rationality. Like, she's talking to a stone, like just a stone cold face there, like a killer. Like the delivery of those lines, it's like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And then we get this where the conversation with Bill at the end is completely different. You know, it's just this, it's just flooded with emotion. And again, you're right, like if she was the same character that she was in the first kind of volume one, it would just be like an assassin all the way through to the end. But because this, we see the mother side where we see the love that she has as well for BB and for Bill. You know, it's just, it's a completely brand new side. And it's gorgeous that we get this ending where, as you say, chilling, giggling, watching a cartoon with her daughter. You think like poles apart compared to like the way the first one ended when she's saying, like, you know, she's talking like saying, send this message to Bill, to like Sophia in like the back of the car. You know, and she's saying like, you know, tell him that I'm going to come for him. And like, I want him to know. And like the delivery of that, and then you compare that to this, it's a completely different side of her. And it's just beautiful. And I love the fact that, you know, she broke Bill's heart by leaving him. You know, she broke his heart. Bill says this for breaking my, you know, my brother's heart. But then she literally broke his heart by doing the 5-point palm, you know, exploding heart technique. That for me is genius. And that writing is epic.
It's the only appropriate way for him to have died.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was what was meant to be.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I also feel like, in a sense, it's like Bill felt like he knew her better than she knew herself. And he's like telling her, you know, what life she's meant for and all these things. And like the end of the movie for me was really her being like, no, I am also like, I want a normal life. Like I really do.
Yeah.
You don't get to decide what life I am accustomed, or what life is like best for me. It's not your decision. Like you understand Bill's motive, but you also have to understand that he's like a narcissistic prick. You know, he's an asshole for thinking that he knows best when it comes to her. And it's no, like I am this woman. Of course, I'm a deadly assassin and I can do all those things. But like, I really do want a normal fucking life. I'm not joking. And I deserve that, you know?
Absolutely.
She deserves to be able to make that decision. I love that that's like what she chose, you know, is to be a mom.
Yeah, of course. It's beautifully played. Absolutely beautiful. And I just take my hat off to Uma Thurman for like capturing that performance. Like all of it, all the way through is just, it's magnetic. And she's just a powerhouse in this movie. And that's why it still ranks for me. I mean, I've seen every Tarantino movie and it still ranks for me as number one. Like I've never watched a pair of movies that I've enjoyed more in Tarantino's movies than Kill Bill 1 and 2. For me, they're his like magnum opus, in my opinion. What's your thoughts? Where do they rank for you, Troy?
Well, this is a weird thing because my favorite, have you ever seen True Romance?
Yes. Yeah.
True Romance is my all-time favorite movie in history ever.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's my favorite movie. And I know that he didn't direct it, but like the writing is so Quentin, and like sometimes it's all you need. It's just like Quentin's dialogue.
Yeah.
So True Romance is my favorite Quentin project, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are, Kill Bill is like maybe it's second and third.
Oh yeah.
They exist in the same universe as my favorite Quentin touched projects, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, like they're still my number one. Obviously, whatever Tarantino goes on to do next, who knows? But as I said, like when we did the first one, like this for me just feels like he made it for me. Like it really, really feels like that. It's just beautifully done. All the homages to everything I love in cinema as well. Like growing up with Asian cinema, to see all of that on screen, like, you know, then references to Bruce Lee and like everything like that. And then this beautiful story told in part two, which is just epic. It's the emotional kind of weight of the entire story, and it's done to perfection. The Chekhov's gun of it all, the callbacks of it all. It's just, It's
Yeah.
masterfully done, and I understand why it got the standing ovation that it did. For me, it's
Yeah.
well deserved. Absolutely well deserved.
Absolutely, my God. I mean, the thought of like being in the screening for that and knowing that it's like going out into the world, and it's something that's like clearly, sometimes you watch things or you listen to something that you know is gonna be like iconic and special,
Yeah.
and it'll be something that people revisit and talk about probably for the rest of eternity.
Mhm.
That's like when you see this for the first time, you're like, okay.
Agreed. Yeah. And it lives in my mind every day. Like it really, really does. It's just one of those movies that I know I can come back to and I'll just love every single time. Like both of them together. And like when cinemas sometimes, as I said to you before, like they do like a 2-part special when like they put them both on together. If I'm ever like available and I'm in town, I go and see it because it's just that good. Honestly, wow. So I just want to say, Troy, a huge thank you for coming on and covering Kill Bill with me. Like honestly, it's incredible the fact that, I love Kill Bill, and the fact that we had that conversation. You love Kill Bill as well. It's been an absolute pleasure for me to talk to you. One of my favorites about one of my favorites, and it's just been phenomenal. So honestly, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh my God, it's an honor. I'm so happy that you allowed me to have this moment on your show, because I've never been able to talk about this movie really, in podcast form the way that I like have dreamed. So this was just as much for me as it was for you. Also, can I come back to talk about True Romance? Like, can we do that? Can we make that a thing?
We absolutely can. Yes, of course we can. Oh my God, I'm excited. Yes. Well, on that note, I do want to say that obviously this is the end now of our cover of Kill Bill 1 and 2. Please do let us know in comments what your thoughts are of Kill Bill 1 and 2 as well. But also, Troy will be coming back to cover another set of films on this podcast, which we will reveal closer to the time. And I am super excited for them because, God, like the first one's great, but the second one is just top tier. It's another famous director who does amazing movies. Super pumped for that, but more on that later. But again, Troy, I just want to say thank you again so much. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I am the co-host of a podcast called Beyond the Blinds. You can find it by just searching Beyond the Blinds on everything. It's on all of the apps. And you can find me I also am the host of another podcast called Dunzo. You can find it by just typing DUNZO into everything with an exclamation point. It helps. And follow me on the internet at Dunzo Pod on Instagram.
There you go. Make sure you do that. Go and follow Troy on everything, because honestly, the content is unreal.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you do want to follow the podcast, if you're just listening, don't follow already. We are available on all podcasting platforms. Just type in, last week on, you will find us. If you do want to follow me, I am at Straughan87. You can put that on all the socials as well as the podcast. Type that in, you'll see my face. As well, this video is on YouTube, so if you do want to watch Troy and I talk about Kill Bill Volume 2 and geek out about it, you'll find it on YouTube as well, and the link for that is in the description. But again, I just want to say a big thank you, Troy. This has been epic. I've loved it so much, and I will speak to you again very soon on our next project.
Bye.
All right, bye.